Elliot Harding walked into the courtroom like he owned the place, his polished shoes clicking against the marble floor with a rhythm that echoed his sense of superiority. Dressed in a designer suit, he exuded the kind of arrogance that comes with being the son of a powerful politician. His father, Senator Harding, had spent decades climbing the political ladder, and Elliot had always been at his side, basking in the privilege that came with the family name. The world, to Elliot, had always been a place where money and power could buy anything, including freedom. As he approached the defendant's table, his confident swagger was unmistakable. He didn't even glance at the courtroom's occupants, his eyes fixed firmly on the table in front of him. There was no fear, no remorse, just entitlement. Elliot knew this was just another formality, another courtroom drama where he would walk away unscathed. After all, his father was a well-known figure, his name synonymous with political influence. And in Elliot's mind, that meant the law was a suggestion, not a rule that applied to him. "Mr. Harding," Judge Judy's voice broke through the air with authority. Elliot finally lifted his head, offering only the faintest nod, not bothering with the usual pleasantries. "No, Your Honor, no respect, just a casual morning, as if they were on equal footing." Judge Judy looked up from her papers, assessing him with a calm but piercing gaze. She had seen men like him before, the wealthy, the entitled, the ones who thought the world owed them everything. But today, it wasn't going to work. Elliot was about to learn that in her courtroom, privilege had no power. "You're charged with being involved in a scheme to defraud your family's reputation, Mr. Harding," Judge Judy said, her tone measured but stern. "And from the looks of it, you think this will be just another day where money and power get you off the hook." Elliot leaned back in his chair, a smug smile creeping onto his face. "Your Honor, I'm here because of a misunderstanding. This whole thing is just a setup. Someone's trying to ruin my family's name. You'll see." "My father." Judge Judy interrupted, cutting him off with a raised hand. "I'm aware of who your father is, Mr. Harding. But in this courtroom, it doesn't matter. You are here to answer for your actions. Nothing else." The audience in the courtroom shifted uneasily, sensing the tension rising. Elliot had assumed that Judge Judy would treat him like most people, his money, his last name, and his father's power would smooth things over. But he had underestimated her. She wasn't interested in his family connections or his expensive suit. She was interested in one thing, the truth. As the bailiff called the case, Elliot's mind raced. He had never faced a situation like this before. His father had always been there to clean up his messes, to make sure his image stayed pristine. But this time was different. This time, the situation was messy, and it was public. The case against him was already out in the press. The headlines screamed of scandal. "Politician's son caught in a honey trap," the media called it. "Framed for an alleged crime he didn't commit." The story seemed cut and dry. Elliot Harding, the spoiled son of a powerful politician, had been lured into a compromising situation by a woman named Isabel. The woman had made accusations against him, claims of assault and manipulation, all backed up by a video that seemed to tell the whole story. But Elliot was insistent. "It's a setup," he told his lawyers, his voice thick with frustration. "Someone's out to destroy my family's name. They know I'm next in line to take over the Harding political legacy. They're trying to bring us down. My father's been too successful, and they want to see him fall. I'm just collateral damage." Judge Judy, however, wasn't interested in Elliot's excuses. She was here to examine the facts, not listen to tales of political vendettas. As she glanced over the charges and the evidence, she noticed something that caught her attention, something that didn't quite add up. The footage of the alleged incident showed Elliot in a compromising position with Isabel, but it was grainy, edited in a way that made it look like something it might not be. "I want the full story, Mr. Harding," Judge Judy said, locking eyes with him. "If this was truly a setup, you better be able to prove it." Elliot opened his mouth to speak, but before he could say anything, Judge Judy continued, "And let's be clear. No amount of money, no name, no connections will change the truth. This court will get to the bottom of this, one way or another. Elliot shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He wasn't used to this kind of treatment. He was used to people deferring to him, people rolling out the red carpet because of who his father was. But not here. Not today. The courtroom fell into a tense silence as Judge Judy called for the security footage to be displayed. Elliot sat back in his chair, his gaze fixed on the screen, waiting for the moment that would exonerate him. He didn't believe for a second that the footage could harm him. After all, the law was a game, and he was an expert player. He had all the right cards. But then the footage began to play. As the grainy footage flickered on the screen, the courtroom fell into an eerie silence. The video showed Elliot Harding at a high-end gala, surrounded by a sea of champagne flutes and socialites. He was mingling, laughing, and looking every bit the part of the entitled politician's son. But then, the camera shifted to Isabel, a striking woman with a magnetic charm who had been trailing Elliot all evening. The video didn't lie, she was flirting with him, leaning in close, laughing at his jokes, and making him the center of attention. It seemed harmless, even playful at first, but soon the camera zoomed in on their faces, capturing the tension in the air. Elliot, intoxicated by both the night and his own sense of invincibility, didn't notice the subtle manipulation unfolding. Isabel knew exactly what she was doing. With every laugh, every touch, she was drawing him closer into her web. "Your Honor, this footage was clearly tampered with," Elliot said, his voice laced with frustration as he watched the scene unfold. "I was set up. I didn't even know she was filming. This is just one big trap to ruin me and my father's name." Judge Judy didn't respond immediately. She continued to watch the footage, her expression unreadable. The video showed Elliot and Isabel stepping away from the crowd, moving into a private corner of the venue. The next few minutes were blurry, the audio distorted, but what could be seen clearly was the way Isabel's demeanor shifted. She was no longer the playful, flirty woman from before. Now, she seemed more focused, more calculating. Judge Judy pressed a button, pausing the video. "Mr. Harding, do you deny that this encounter took place?" she asked, her voice sharp and commanding. Elliot looked at her, his face turning a shade darker, but he remained composed. "No, Your Honor. That part is true. I met her, we talked, but I didn't think anything of it. I had no idea she was setting me up. I never thought someone would use my naivety against me like this." Isabel's voice crackled through the speakers as the video resumed, and she whispered something inaudible in Elliot's ear. A fleeting moment of hesitation, and then Elliot's hand reached out. The footage showed him brushing her cheek, the tip of his finger barely grazing her skin, but the camera zoomed in just enough to make it look like a more intimate gesture. A collective gasp rippled through the courtroom. Judge Judy's eyes narrowed. "Mr. Harding, this looks to be the exact type of behavior you're accused of, intimate, inappropriate. How do you explain this?" "Your Honor," Elliot said, his voice beginning to break as he tried to maintain control, I wasn't aware of what was going on. I thought we were just talking. I didn't realize that she was filming." Judge Judy's face hardened. "Do you understand how this looks to the court? There is no mistaking what is on this video. Your actions, what you did, what was captured, seem to show clear involvement in this alleged crime. If this was a setup, it was a well-executed one." Elliot felt the walls closing in around him. He had expected the footage to be in his favor. He had assumed that the truth would come out, his innocence would shine through. But instead, it felt as though the more he spoke, the more it seemed like he was digging a deeper hole. He turned to his lawyer, his expression filled with panic. "You have to see it, you have to know this was all planned. Isabel tricked me. I didn't do anything wrong." The lawyer leaned in and whispered, but before he could say anything, the next part of the footage played, sending a chill down Elliot's spine. In the video, after several minutes of conversation, Isabel slipped something into Elliot's drink when he wasn't paying attention, a drug, perhaps? Elliot's face grew more flushed, his movements more sluggish. The camera captured the moment when Elliot seemed to lose focus, his speech slurred as he laughed. Isabel, now in complete control of the situation, subtly guided him towards a more private area of the venue. Judge Judy paused the video again, her voice cold. "Mr. Harding, you said you didn't know she was filming. You didn't know she was setting you up. Yet, you are seen in this footage becoming increasingly disoriented. Are you suggesting that you were completely unaware of your actions?" Elliot froze. He had never been so exposed in his life. The room was silent, everyone watching as he stammered for words. But his mind was racing. He tried to maintain the image he had always held, wealthy, powerful, untouchable, but it was slipping away, piece by piece. I didn't do anything," he insisted, though his voice lacked the usual conviction. "This isn't me. This isn't who I am. Someone's framing me." Judge Judy's gaze never wavered. "What you're describing, Mr. Harding, sounds more like a defense than the truth. I'm hearing a lot of, someone else did this but not much about you taking responsibility." The room grew tense as Judge Judy's words cut through Elliot's defenses. The more she spoke, the more his entire persona seemed to unravel. He had spent his life believing that his last name, his connections, his wealth would shield him from consequences. He had never been forced to confront the truth, and certainly not in front of the world. But now, as the video continued to play, it was clear that he had underestimated the power of justice, and Judge Judy. As Isabel's manipulative actions became more evident in the footage, Elliot's desperation grew. He needed to find a way out. But Judge Judy wasn't going to let him off that easily. She wasn't interested in his excuses or his family name. She wanted the truth. And she was determined to get it, no matter how hard Elliot fought. As the video continued to play, Elliot's confidence was all but shattered. He watched helplessly as Isabel, the woman who had framed him, expertly manipulated every step of their interaction. The footage showed her leading him into a secluded area, but the most damning part came next. Isabel planted a small camera in her purse, discreetly catching Elliot in moments of vulnerability. The camera angle wasn't just compromising, it was damning. It showed Elliot's hand on Isabel's lower back as she guided him into the room. But it wasn't just that. The way the video was framed, the way she had set up the entire scene, made it seem like Elliot was fully complicit. She had created the illusion of guilt, a trap too elaborate for someone like him to recognize. Judge Judy's gaze remained fixed on Elliot as she motioned for the video to be paused. The entire courtroom was still, waiting for her next move. "Mr. Harding, you're a smart man," Judge Judy said, her voice calm yet cutting. "You don't get to where you are without knowing how to read people, how to use power. So let me ask you this, how do you explain the fact that you didn't even recognize you were being manipulated by Isabel?" Elliot shifted uncomfortably in his seat, avoiding her eyes. He had always been quick with his words, able to talk his way out of any situation, but now, in front of Judge Judy, his charm and wit seemed useless. "I didn't know," he muttered, his voice weaker than before. "I wasn't thinking clearly. She tricked me." Judge Judy's eyes hardened. "So, you're telling me that you're the victim here? That you're some naive young man who got caught up in this elaborate, honey trap, without realizing it? You truly believe that your actions were completely unintentional?" Elliot clenched his fists, a bead of sweat forming on his brow. He could feel the weight of her words, the sting of their implication. He had been careless. His pride, his arrogance, had made him blind to the manipulation unfolding right in front of him. And now, in the courtroom, he had to answer for it. Before he could speak, Judge Judy continued, her voice gaining strength. "The problem here, Mr. Harding, is that you're not owning up to your role in all of this. You've been caught in a scandal, and instead of taking responsibility, you're pointing fingers. You say you were tricked, manipulated. But all I see is a man who didn't think the rules applied to him. You thought your wealth, your family name, would shield you from the consequences of your actions. And that's where you're wrong. The room was dead silent, the air thick with tension. Elliot's heart pounded in his chest as the reality of the situation began to settle in. He had expected sympathy, maybe even leniency, but instead, he was being confronted by the full force of Judge Judy's unyielding sense of justice. She wasn't just about delivering sentences, she was about delivering lessons. And Elliot was about to learn one that would cost him everything. Judge Judy leaned forward, her gaze never leaving Elliot. This court will not tolerate manipulation, not from anyone, regardless of their last name, their bank account, or their position in society. You think this is a game, Mr. Harding. But real lives are at stake here. The damage you've done to Isabel, to your own reputation, and to your family's name is irreparable. You can't buy your way out of this, no matter how many zeros you have in your bank account. Elliot opened his mouth to speak, but the words caught in his throat. He knew she was right. He had always been able to fix his mistakes, pay someone off, buy his way out, use his connections to avoid consequences. But now, it was clear, money wouldn't work here. In Judge Judy's courtroom, wealth and power meant nothing. I didn't mean for it to get this far, Elliot said, his voice small, almost pleading. I never thought. Judge Judy cut him off, her voice firm. You didn't think, Mr. Harding. That's the problem. You didn't think about the people you hurt. You didn't think about the consequences of your actions. And now, here you are, trying to shift the blame onto someone else. You say you were framed, but I see something else, a young man who thought he could get away with anything. Elliot slumped in his chair, his pride completely stripped away. Judge Judy had delivered her message loud and clear. He had thought the law was something he could sidestep. Now, he realized, it wasn't just a courtroom he had to worry about. It was the court of public opinion, the media, his father's political career, and most importantly, his own conscience. Judge Judy, never one to show sympathy for those who misuse their privilege, continued, You're going to have to face the music, Mr. Harding. There's no easy way out of this. Your family's reputation may be in ruins, but this court is about finding the truth, not hiding behind lies. The courtroom murmured as Judge Judy turned her attention to the prosecution, instructing them to prepare for the next steps. Mr. Harding's future now depends on one thing, whether he can show genuine remorse for his actions. The evidence is clear, but it's up to him to prove that he understands the weight of what he's done. Elliot sat in stunned silence, the enormity of the situation sinking in. His world, once dominated by wealth, power, and influence, was crumbling before his eyes. The money, the connections, none of it mattered. For the first time in his life, he realized that nothing could shield him from the consequences of his behavior. He had crossed a line, and now, the full force of justice was coming for him. The courtroom was silent as the weight of Judge Judy's words hung in the air. Elliot Harding, once the embodiment of wealth and power, now sat in front of her, stripped of the arrogance he had walked in with. His face, once flushed with pride, was now pale, his eyes darting nervously as he processed the reality of what was happening. He had always believed that his name, his money, and his family's influence would protect him from any consequence. But now, as he looked at the video footage, heard Judge Judy's accusations, and saw the evidence mounting against him, Elliot was starting to understand the hard truth: his privilege had failed him. Judge Judy paused for a moment, letting the tension in the room build. It was clear she wasn't done yet. She wasn't simply here to pass judgment, she was here to make an example out of Elliot, to show him and everyone in the courtroom that no one was above the law, no matter how rich or powerful they were. Mr. Harding, Judge Judy began again, her voice measured, but her words carried the force of someone who had seen it all. You walked into this courtroom thinking you could manipulate the truth, that your family name could shield you from facing the consequences of your actions. But you made one crucial mistake. You underestimated me. Elliot shifted uneasily in his seat. The gavel had come down. He knew that there was no way to talk his way out of this now. He had lost control of the narrative, and no amount of pleading would change the truth that was laid out before him. Isabel, with her honey trap, had set him up, but his actions had allowed it to happen. His own hubris and sense of entitlement had paved the way for his downfall. Judge Judy continued, her eyes never leaving Elliot. You've been given every opportunity to come clean, to own up to your behavior. But instead, you've chosen to play the victim. I see through your lies, Mr. Harding. And I'm not about to let you use your family's name as a shield in my courtroom. Elliot opened his mouth to protest, but no words came out. Judge Judy's words had already hit their mark, and for the first time, he realized there was no escaping the consequences of his actions. The truth, Mr. Harding, is that you were manipulated. But you played your part. You allowed yourself to be manipulated. You thought that you could get away with anything. You thought you could charm your way out of it. You thought the rules didn't apply to you. And that's where you went wrong, Judge Judy said, her tone firm and unwavering. Elliot's mind raced as he thought about his next move. He couldn't afford to lose his father's respect, his family's legacy, his future. This case wasn't just about him anymore. It was about his entire world, everything he had worked for, or at least, everything he had inherited. His father's political career was on the line, and Elliot had always taken for granted that his father's name would be enough to protect him. He wasn't ready to let it all slip away. But as he opened his mouth to speak, Judge Judy raised a hand, signaling him to stop. Mr. Harding, I've heard enough of your excuses. You're not going to talk your way out of this. The evidence speaks for itself. Elliot's throat tightened. He could feel the weight of the courtroom on his shoulders, the eyes of everyone in the room watching him, waiting for the inevitable. The public fallout from this trial had already begun. His name was everywhere, on the front page of newspapers, on social media, trending online. The damage had already been done. But it wasn't just the media storm that worried him. It was his father. His father's political career had always been his ticket to success, his ticket to a life of comfort and privilege. But now, it seemed like that ticket was about to be revoked. Judge Judy stood up slowly, and the entire courtroom held its breath. Mr. Harding, you may have thought your family's name would protect you from the consequences of your actions. But in this courtroom, there is only one name that matters, justice. And today, justice is going to make sure you learn a very important lesson. Elliot could feel his heart pounding in his chest as he waited for Judge Judy's verdict. He knew it was coming, but he wasn't ready for the crushing blow that he knew was about to fall. His mind was spinning, he thought he had a chance, that his family's name would come through for him, but now he understood, there was no escaping this. Not this time. Judge Judy's voice cut through the silence like a knife. You are found guilty, Mr. Harding, of being complicit in a scheme to manipulate the truth, frame your own character, and destroy the reputation of others. You've been reckless with the truth, and now, you will face the consequences. Elliot's breath caught in his throat. He had known this moment would come, but hearing the words spoken aloud was something else entirely. The weight of Judge Judy's judgment crashed over him like a wave, and for the first time, he realized just how far he had fallen. First, Judge Judy continued, you will pay restitution to the victim, Isabel. Though the court recognizes that she played a role in this manipulation, your actions contributed to the damage done to her as well. You will pay for her medical bills, legal fees, and any damages caused by the public humiliation she experienced as a result of your involvement in this scheme. Elliot's jaw tightened as he heard the verdict. He had always thought money could fix everything, but this was different. This wasn't something that could be bought. This wasn't just about paying for mistakes with a check. This was about something deeper, his sense of entitlement, his disregard for the consequences, and the way he had treated the law as a tool for personal gain. Second, Judge Judy continued, her voice steady, you will serve 200 hours of community service. Not the kind of service you're used to, no fancy dinners, no charitable donations that buy your way out of trouble. You will work directly with those who have been affected by your actions. You will work with the victims of honey traps, helping them rebuild their lives and restore their dignity. You will learn what it means to truly serve others, without the veil of privilege. Elliot felt the blood drain from his face. 200 hours. That was more than a punishment. That was a lesson in humility. He had never been forced to work for anything in his life. His entire existence had been one of convenience, of having others serve him. But now, he would be the one serving others. He would be forced to confront his own arrogance, to see firsthand the kind of damage his entitlement had caused. And finally, Judge Judy said, her tone hardening, "You will take full responsibility for your actions in a public statement. You will apologize to the court, to the public, and to everyone you've hurt. Your father may be a powerful man, but even his influence can't undo the damage you've done." Elliot felt his stomach churn. His father's reputation had always been his shield. But now, it seemed that even his father's name couldn't protect him from the fallout. The apology was a public acknowledgement of his guilt, a full confession of the mistakes he had made. And in that moment, Elliot realized that this was the hardest part. The truth was out there. It was no longer something he could hide from. As the bailiffs moved in to escort him from the courtroom, Elliot looked at Judge Judy for the first time without the arrogance that had once defined him. She had delivered a judgment he couldn't escape. He had lost everything he thought mattered, the shield of his family's wealth, the protection of his name, the sense of invincibility that came with his father's position. Now, it was just him, standing in the rubble of his own pride. Judge Judy's final words echoed in his ears as he was led out of the courtroom. "Justice doesn't care who you are, Mr. Harding. It doesn't care about your family name, your wealth, or your power. In this courtroom, we only care about the truth." As Elliot walked out, the weight of her words settled on him. For the first time, he understood what true justice looked like, and it had come at a price he hadn't expected to pay.